And we're sorry, we're talking about Elon Musk again. This time, it's because he's finally found someone, quote, foolish enough, his words, not ours, to take on the job of Twitter's CEO.
You can't help it, that's okay.
Less than 2 months into his $44 billion purchase of Twitter, Elon Musk declared that whoever took over as the company's CEO must like pain a lot. Then he promised he'd step down as soon as he found a replacement foolish enough to want the job. That person is Linda Yaccarino, a highly regarded advertising executive from NBC Universal. She'll start in 6 weeks. How long she'll last might depend on her pain tolerance. When Musk tweeted that he's found a new CEO but didn't say who, one word stuck out: she. Some of his more extreme Twitter followers took immediate issue, but the fact that Musk hired a woman is actually notable simply because it is so rare to see female chief executives. Her appointment renewed questions about the glass cliff, a theory that women, as well as underrepresented minorities, are more likely to be hired for leadership jobs when there's a crisis, which sets them up for failure. Could Yaccarino be headed toward it? Whether or not she succeeds depends in part on how much Musk is willing to step back from Twitter's day-to-day operations. The Tesla and SpaceX CEO said he will continue to serve as Twitter's executive chairman, Yaccarino's boss, as well as its chief technology officer, reporting to her.
This new policy talking about if it's awful but not unlawful, does it apply to your tweets?
Yaccarino seems ready to go head-to-head with Musk, though it's not clear how that'll play out. Still, advertising industry experts are hailing the decision as a good one to steer Twitter towards stability and profitability. Yaccarino oversaw NBC Universal's market strategy and advertising revenue for its broadcast, cable, and digital assets, which totaled nearly $10 billion. Regaining advertisers' trust will require stabilizing Twitter and ensuring that key product decisions are made thoughtfully and deliberately, not in the spur of the moment, inspired by a fan's tweet or a passing thought, as Musk has often been known to do. Joining us now to talk more about how women end up on this glass cliff is Associate Professor of Organizational Behavior and Management, Vanessa Druskat. Professor, why do we see this trend of women being chosen for leadership roles at businesses in trouble?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. I appreciate that. We've often heard about the glass ceiling, but not many folks have heard about the glass cliff. The glass cliff first came about in research that was done around 2003 by Michelle Ryan and Alex Haslam. And they had seen an article that was written about the Financial Times stock exchange numbers, and they discovered that when women were on the board of directors of companies, at least this is what was reported in the newspaper, it seemed to be that companies were doing worse. So their conclusion was that women were somehow having a bad effect on the outcomes of companies. Well, they dug deeply into the data because it didn't make sense to them. And sure enough, what they found was that when companies were beginning to have problems, they put women on the board. So then the question becomes why? And part of it is stereotype that women are more kind and can better shepherd an organization through an emotional change, which could be true, but that partly that's based on a stereotype. And oftentimes women are put in these positions and there's really not much they can do.
Do you think part of it could be that these companies are setting them up to fail and using that as a reason to not promote women to leadership positions in the future?
It's a good question. I don't think so. I don't think it's that well thought out. I think they look at what the options are at the time, and their stereotype is this is going to be a tough time. We need someone who's a little more touchy-feely, if you will. But it's not that simple. And we should acknowledge that a lot of women are able to pull that off and do well. In fact, my own research showed that women are actually more transformational leaders than men are. Transformational leaders basically means that they're better able to transform organizations. So there is some data to support that women can do that well, but it's just not always true.
We're still working toward gender equality in the workplace, especially at companies like Twitter. Is it possible for leadership positions to be absent of bias and purely competency-based?
Oh, what a great question. I wish it was. You know, when we look at, by the way, I should mention that the glass cliff is not only about women, it's also about people of color and, people who are underseen at these top levels. What we know is that there are really three tactics that are used to try to get people who are normally not white, put it this way, not white men up into these higher levels. The research generally shows that the best way is if you have, and nobody likes this word, but let's just call it, for lack of a better word, affirmative action policies. Or if you're counting how many women or how many people of color or underserved populations we have at higher levels. Those are the companies that really move people up. Without that number counting, there are just so many unconscious biases. It's not bad people. These people who are making the decisions, I really fundamentally believe that they're not bad people. It's just that they don't know they have these biases, and it's super hard to convince them that they do.
Well, we can only hope things move in a more positive direction. Thanks so much for joining us, Professor.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Take care.